It was a damp, foggy evening in the late autumn of 1969 when the mysterious messages began to surface. A series of cryptic symbols that would soon haunt the residents of Northern California for decades. In a quiet town on the outskirts of Vallejo, life went on as usual. The hum of the local diner, the gentle murmur of the harbor, and the everyday worries of citizens who never imagined that terror was quietly stalking them. This is the story of one such night, a night that blurred the lines between reality and nightmare, drawing together threads of fate in a tapestry as enigmatic as the killer behind the name, Zodiac. The day had been unremarkable for Maria Alvarez, a schoolteacher known for her compassionate smile and quiet strength. As the afternoon light waned, Maria finished her lesson plans and took a leisurely stroll through the winding streets of her neighborhood. She often enjoyed the calming ritual of her walk home, a chance to breathe in the cool sea air and let her thoughts drift like autumn leaves along the pavement. Unbeknownst to her, destiny had other plans. The streets were eerily quiet, the typical hustle and bustle of a Californian town subdued under an oppressive sky. In the distance, the low hum of a car engine was the only sign of life. Maria, who had grown up in this town, recognized every face and every familiar building. But that night, something was off. There was a subtle tension in the air, an invisible warning that brushed against her skin like a whisper in the dark. As she passed a deserted park, its playgrounds and benches cloaked in shadow, a rustle in the nearby bushes made her pause. Her heart quickened as she glanced around, expecting perhaps a stray animal or a harmless prank. Instead, she caught a glimpse of a figure, dark, indistinct, lurking just beyond the reach of the streetlights. The figure stood motionless, as if waiting, and in that frozen moment, Maria felt a chill that was not entirely due to the cold. Days later, the local newspaper printed a letter adorned with strange symbols, signed simply as Zodiac. It was an enigma wrapped in mystery, a taunt from a faceless terror that had so far evaded capture. The letter mentioned names and dates in cryptic verses, each line a puzzle to be unraveled. For the townspeople, it was as if the words had been carved out of thin air, a portent that whispered of unseen danger. Rumors began to swirl through the community, and fear took root in the hearts of those who thought themselves safe in their familiar routines. Detective Samuel Harding, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for his methodical approach, was assigned to the case. His face, etched with lines of experience, masked an inner storm of thoughts as he pored over every detail. Harding was not one to be swayed by public hysteria, but even he could not ignore the unsettling precision of the Zodiac's messages. They were a blend of calculated cruelty and a twisted sense of intellectual superiority. In his dimly lit office, surrounded by files and photographs of various crime scenes, Harding began piecing together clues that others had dismissed as coincidences. In the shadow of the growing terror, the story of the Zodiac was not only etched in mysterious letters, but also in the lives of its victims, ordinary people whose dreams and routines were abruptly shattered. Their names, once familiar and cherished, would now be whispered in hushed tones among the community. Alice Monroe was one such victim. A vibrant and creative soul, Alice was a young artist whose canvases overflowed with color and emotion. Known for her lively personality and her passion for community projects, she had transformed a small studio above the local bookstore into a haven of creativity. On that fateful evening, Alice had been returning from an art exhibit at a nearby gallery, her heart full of inspiration and hope. Her gentle laughter and the spark in her eyes were remembered by many. Instead, the terror of the night would erase her promising future, leaving behind only the poignant echo of her art and the unfulfilled dreams of a life cut short. Michael Harris was another life forever altered by the Zodiac's cruelty. Michael, a dedicated firefighter with an unyielding commitment to saving others, was known for his quiet bravery and an infectious smile that could calm even the most frightened souls. Off-duty, he was a loving husband and a father to a spirited young daughter. On his way home, after a long shift, he was last seen walking along a dimly lit street, his thoughts lingering on plans for a family reunion. His absence would cast a long shadow over the town as loved ones struggled to understand how someone so full of life could suddenly vanish into darkness. Then there was Evelyn Carter, a hard-working nurse whose gentle touch and empathetic care had soothed many wounds, both physical and emotional. Evelyn spent her days caring for patients at the local clinic and her nights tending to her garden, a place where she nurtured both flowers and fragile hopes. Her calm, steady presence was a beacon for those in distress, yet even her resilience could not shield her from the encroaching horror. On the evening of her disappearance, she had been returning from a community event, her mind filled with plans for a charity drive. Her loss reverberated throughout the community, leaving a void that could never be replaced. These lives, along with many others whose names faded into the background of the larger mystery, were woven into the fabric of the town. Their routines, relationships, and quiet aspirations were brutally interrupted by the unseen hand of terror. The victims were more than statistics or fleeting mentions in police reports. They were mothers, fathers, artists, and caregivers, each with a story that deserved remembrance. Detective Harding's investigation led him through a labyrinth of evidence and conflicting testimonies. The Zodiac's letters, though elegantly composed, were fraught with contradictions. Some clues pointed to an individual with a deep understanding of literature and cryptography, while others suggested a cold-blooded killer who delighted in the manipulation of fear. Harding spent endless nights decoding the messages, scribbling notes on a battered notepad under the flickering light of a single desk lamp. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled in the distance, a breakthrough came in the form of a faded photograph discovered in an abandoned building. The image was grainy, a man with a striking gaze and an enigmatic smile that seemed to mock the very notion of justice. Harding stared at the picture, his mind racing through possibilities. Was this the elusive Zodiac, or merely a decoy planted to mislead the investigation? As the detective delved deeper, he began to uncover a network of connections that spanned the city and its outskirts. Witnesses reported strange encounters, a man in a patterned overcoat seen near dark alleys, peculiar symbols etched on walls, and whispered rumors of clandestine meetings in the dead of night. Each new lead only deepened the mystery, weaving a narrative that was as complex as it was terrifying. In the midst of the investigation, Maria's path crossed with another victim of circumstance, Lenny Miller, a local journalist with a penchant for uncovering the truth. Lenny had been following the Zodiac story with an intensity that bordered on obsession. His investigative pieces, published in the local paper, painted a picture of a community under siege by an invisible enemy. Yet, Behind his determined exterior lay a personal quest for redemption, a desire to prove that truth, no matter how elusive, could always be brought to light. Lenny's routine was one of meticulous observation, waking up before dawn, poring over old case files, and chasing down leads that others had deemed too dangerous to pursue. He frequented the same coffee shops and dimly lit bars as Maria, sometimes catching brief, fleeting glances of each other, two souls adrift in a sea of uncertainty, their shared, unspoken understanding of the precarious balance between safety and peril forged an invisible bond, one that would soon be tested by the encroaching darkness. One chilly November night, Lenny followed a tip that led him to a deserted warehouse on the edge of town. The building, shrouded in shadows and decaying memories, was rumored to be a rendezvous point for those connected to the Zodiac's sinister plot. As Lenny stepped inside, the smell of rust and old paper filled his nostrils. The warehouse was a maze of corridors and forgotten rooms, each echoing with the whispers of lost time. His footsteps, light yet deliberate, carried him deeper into the labyrinth. It was in one such room, a small dust-covered space lit only by the faint glow of a single street lamp seeping through a cracked window, that Lenny found a series of scribbled notes. The pages were filled with cryptic symbols, much like those in the Zodiac's letters. The air was heavy with a sense of foreboding, as if the walls themselves were trying to warn him away. Yet, driven by a relentless curiosity, Lenny pocketed the notes, his mind already whirring with questions and theories. Back at the police station, Detective Harding and his team were piecing together the fragmented evidence like a mosaic. Every clue was a fragment of a larger picture, and every new lead seemed to be swallowed by the vast, impenetrable darkness of the Zodiac's mystery. In his cluttered office, surrounded by maps, photos, and scribbled notes, Harding began to sense that the killer was not just a ghost, but an architect of a grand, macabre design. One particularly stormy night, as lightning danced across the sky, Harding received an anonymous tip, a tip that spoke of a hidden location deep within the city's abandoned industrial district. The tipster claimed that this was the epicenter of the Zodiac's operations, a place where the killer's obsession with symbolism and control was most palpable. Driven by equal parts skepticism and determination, Harding set out to explore the district, accompanied by a small team of officers. The industrial district was a forgotten corner of the city, a place where time seemed to have stopped. Rusted machinery, crumbling warehouses, and overgrown alleyways painted a picture of decay and abandonment. In the midst of this urban graveyard, the team discovered a dilapidated building that bore the unmistakable marks of recent activity. Fresh graffiti, depicting cryptic symbols and unsettling messages, adorned its walls, a modern echo of the Zodiac's signature style. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The beam of a flashlight revealed remnants of hurried scribbling on the walls, scraps of paper scattered on the floor, and a sense of disturbed order. In one of the rooms, tucked behind a broken desk, was a small journal. The entries were disjointed, filled with ramblings about destiny, chaos, and the inevitable unraveling of society. For Harding, the journal was a chilling confirmation of what many had long feared. The Zodiac was not a relic of the past, but a living, breathing enigma whose reach extended further than anyone had imagined. The paths of Maria, Lenny, and Detective Harding converged in unexpected ways. Maria, whose cautious steps had kept her largely out of harm's way, began to feel the pull of the mystery. driven by an inner compulsion to understand the shadow that had brushed her life that fateful night. She started to record her experiences. Late at night, she would sit by her window, pen in hand, and chronicle every detail. The flicker of a street light, the distant sound of footsteps, the inexplicable chill that would descend upon her. What started as personal therapy slowly transformed into a detailed account of a community haunted by an invisible terror and the tragic loss of its own. Lenny, too, was consumed by his pursuit of the truth. The more he uncovered, the more he felt the weight of destiny upon his shoulders. His articles, laden with both the factual evidence and speculative musings, captured the public's imagination. Yet, with every published piece, he sensed that he was drawing closer to a line he might never be able to return from, a line that separated the safe from the damned. Detective Harding's investigation grew more frenetic as the Zodiac's taunts became increasingly brazen. The killer's messages now arrived with disturbing frequency, each letter a meticulously crafted puzzle designed to unnerve and confound. Harding's nights were fraught with restless dreams of dark corridors and spectral figures, and his days were spent chasing shadows that vanished as quickly as they appeared. Despite his years of experience, the detective found himself in a race against time, a race in which the rules were rewritten with every new revelation. It was on a particularly moonless night that the final act of this unfolding drama began to take shape. The air was thick with moisture and dread, and the streets seemed to hold their breath. Maria, compelled by an unexplainable need to confront the darkness, found herself walking the same path where, years before, she had glimpsed that mysterious figure. Her heart pounded as she approached the deserted park, where the rustle of leaves and the soft sigh of the wind were the only sounds that accompanied her. Unbeknownst to her, Lenny was also drawn to the park. Following a new lead, he believed that the park held a clue, an overlooked detail in the pattern of the Zodiac's communications. In a twist of fate, the two crossed paths beneath a solitary, gnarled tree that had witnessed countless seasons pass by. Their eyes met for a brief moment, sharing an unspoken understanding of the danger that lurked in the shadows. Before they could exchange words, a sudden disturbance shattered the quiet. A car engine roared in the distance, growing louder by the second. In the ensuing chaos, a masked figure emerged from the darkness, a figure whose presence was as chilling as the legends that had grown around him. The figure's face was obscured by a patterned scarf, and his eyes glinted with a cold, unyielding purpose. It was as if he embodied every dark secret and unspeakable truth that the community had been trying to forget. Maria and Lenny, caught in the grip of terror, retreated into the shadows, their instincts screaming at them to run. But the figure moved with an almost preternatural grace, gliding silently toward them. In that surreal moment, the park transformed into a stage for a confrontation that transcended the ordinary. The masked man stopped beneath the gnarled tree, turning his gaze toward Maria, as if he recognized the flicker of destiny in her eyes. In the days that followed, the envelope became the focus of both media frenzy and police scrutiny. Inside, Maria found a series of handwritten notes and sketches, each more cryptic than the last. The notes spoke of fate, retribution, and the intricate dance between light and darkness. They hinted at future events, an unending series of puzzles that the Zodiac had devised to torment the city. For Maria, the envelope was both a burden and a key. It was a piece of the puzzle that might unlock the mystery of the killer's identity. yet it also threatened to drag her further into the abyss. Detective Harding orchestrated a citywide operation. His team scoured every corner of the town, from abandoned warehouses to quiet suburban lanes, searching for any connection to the Zodiac's macabre message. The investigation was a cacophony of leads and dead-end strands, a relentless pursuit of truth in a maze of misdirection. Each new discovery deepened the mystery, painting a picture of a killer who was not only methodical but possessed an unsettling artistic sensibility. Lenny, meanwhile, poured his heart and soul into his writings. His articles, filled with both sorrow and defiant optimism, recounted the vibrant lives lost too soon. He chronicled Alice's infectious laughter and radiant paintings, Michael's quiet heroism and family devotion, and Evelyn's gentle care that had touched so many lives. In telling their stories, Lenny honored not only the memory of the fallen, but also the resilience of a community determined to find light amidst darkness. The climax of this tangled narrative came on a night when the moon was obscured by swirling clouds, and the city itself seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. Detective Harding had gathered his team for one final push, a coordinated effort to confront the heart of the mystery. The intelligence they had pieced together pointed them to an abandoned estate on the outskirts of town, a sprawling mansion that had long been the subject of local legends. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere was thick with decay and neglect. Dust motes danced in the dim light filtering through broken windows, and the echoes of the past whispered through empty halls. Harding led his team cautiously, every step measured, every breath deliberate. In a room at the very center of the mansion, they discovered a chilling shrine, a macabre gallery of photographs, newspaper clippings, and handwritten notes that chronicled the Zodiac's reign of terror. Among the artifacts, a particularly disturbing piece caught Harding's attention, a photograph of a man who bore an uncanny resemblance to the masked figure from the park. The image, faded with time, was annotated with a series of numbers and letters that seemed to form a code. As the detective examined the photograph, a sense of inevitability settled over him. He realized that the Zodiac was not merely a specter of the past, but an active force, a relentless presence that had shaped lives, stolen futures, and left behind a trail of unanswered questions. Outside, the storm raged with renewed fury, as if nature itself were protesting the unfolding events. Maria, compelled by a need to bring light to the darkness, had arrived at the mansion, drawn by the promise of uncovering the truth. In the dim glow of a single lantern, her eyes scanned the room, absorbing every detail: the torn newspaper clippings, the cryptic sketches, the haunting silence that filled the space. It was a repository of secrets, and in that moment, she understood that the Zodiac's mark was more than a series of crimes. It was an indelible stain on the fabric of the community, etched in the memory of every victim who had once breathed, loved, and hoped. Lenny, too, arrived at the mansion, driven by an unyielding desire to capture the story that had defined a generation. His footsteps echoed through the empty corridors, his recorder in hand, as he documented every piece of evidence with a mixture of dread and determination. The convergence of their paths, Maria's quiet resilience, Lenny's relentless pursuit of truth, and Harding's unwavering commitment to justice, created a moment of profound significance. In the fading light of that stormy night, the trio stood at the crossroads of destiny, each aware that the final act was at hand. As the clock struck midnight, a new message arrived, a final haunting letter bearing the unmistakable signature of the Zodiac. The letter, scrawled in an elegant yet sinister hand, promised that the cycle was far from over, that the darkness would persist even as the city sought to reclaim its peace. It was a declaration, a reminder that the legacy of the Zodiac was woven into the very soul of the community, a legacy defined not only by terror, but also by the lives lost and the stories left behind. In the aftermath of that fateful night, the community slowly began to heal, though the scars of terror and loss remained etched in memory. Detective Harding's investigation, while never conclusively solving the case, had ignited a determination within the city, a collective resolve to honor the memories of Alice, Michael, Evelyn, and so many others. Maria continued to record her thoughts in her journal, transforming her once quiet life into a chronicle of resilience and remembrance. And Lenny's articles, filled with both sorrow and defiant optimism, became a tribute to the lives that were taken too soon, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit endures. The Zodiac's mark had left an indelible impression on every life it touched, a reminder that beneath the veneer of everyday normalcy lay a world of secrets, shadows, and lost dreams. The killer, elusive and enigmatic, had become a symbol of both human cruelty and the bittersweet beauty of ordinary lives tragically interrupted. His messages, both cryptic and chilling, served as a constant reminder that every mystery carries within it the stories of those who lived, loved, and hoped for a better tomorrow. For some, the story of the Zodiac remains an unsolvable puzzle, a labyrinth of clues that leads only to more questions than answers. For others, it stands as a testament to the unyielding spirit of a community that refuses to let fear silence the memories of the fallen. And so, the legend endures, a spectral figure cast in shadows whose true identity may forever remain a secret, a mystery as infinite and haunting as the night sky. As the years turned into decades, the tale of the Zodiac was passed down like an urban myth, a story that morphed with every retelling, growing in detail and darkness. It became a part of the cultural fabric, a reminder of a time when terror lurked just beyond the edges of the familiar, and when a community learned to honor its lost souls. And on quiet, foggy nights, when the wind whispered through the trees and the streets lay bathed in the pale glow of a reluctant moon, one could almost hear the echo of a signature, a chilling reminder that some mysteries and some lives are meant to be remembered.